Topic 7.3, thermal inversion, the ceiling in the sky. And we can see it. It's a nice example right here where some kind of ignition source, can't tell quite what that is, but instead of the smoke going up, it just kind of hits an invisible layer and then just spreads out and just hang. And what we'll see in a minute, what this is a warm layer of air over a cooler layer. So you have the cool layer on the ground, that warmer air above. It acts like a lid right on top of that smoke and just keeps it from moving. And this normally happens in the wintertime, but we'll get into that. But as you can see, look at that. You don't want to be breathing that air. It really helps to exacerbate air pollution. So here's a good diagram. We're going to talk about how these inversion layers affect or are related to pollution, air pollution specifically. And remember, normal conditions, warmer air near the surface, cooler air as you go up. So that warmer air, we know warm air rises and it just goes up and up and up. And any pollutions near the ground just get taken up with it. And we see in that inversion, that warm air layer just keeping a lid and all that pollution just sticking right near the ground. So I think, that's just visualize that as when you think about inversions, it's just a lid on top of the pollution holding it down. So the during the thermal inversion, the normal gradient in the atmosphere is altered. Gradient just means a difference, which, remember, usually is warmer near the bottom, cooler at the top, because the Earth's surface, the air temperature at the Earth's surface is cooler than at higher altitudes. And usually it happens in the winter. So write this down on your paper. In the winter, that winter sun is not nearly as strong and the surface does not cool up. However, that upper layer does get that sunlight and gets that warmth, and that's the kiss of death, especially if you factor in areas that have a basin geography that we talked about that's super important for air pollution, and low wind. So add that basin geography exacerbating this. So basin geography, low wind, and then winter. That's your trifecta. So that warmer air acts like a lid, and oftentimes in the winter, people are burning wood especially some places, and that is heavy in particulates, and it goes up, and the air just gets really bad. Where I grew up in Yakima, Washington, it's like that. So thermal inversion traps pollution close to the ground, especially smog and particulates. So I want to add that word gradient. Now that's going to come up. It could come up in many different ways, but I want, look at this. This is what I mean by a gradient. This is a nice little representation showing this is normal, right? Normal conditions, warm down here, moving to cooler. And you'll see it's flipped upside down. We have the cool air sticking next to the ground. And what does that do? It traps the pollution right there where we have to breathe it. So what I want you to do is look at this question. If you were out having a nice hike, maybe doing backpacking or whatever, and you come to this little mountain valley and you set up your tent right here, woo, yeah, and you want to make your campfire, what is going to happen overnight or as you burn that fire? Go ahead and think a bit for yourself. Pause the video and think to yourself for a second. Have you thought? Okay. Now that you've thought about it, what you should be noticing is, funnily enough, we have an inversion going on. You see how it's cooler at the bottom? We have this warm air acting as a lid. I'm going to say warm air lid. So, whatever smoke you make from your fire is going to get held down into this valley. Okay, so what we see, cooler air on top of warmer air. Classic, time where we're going to be seeing inversions. Pollution can't disperse upwards. We have a basin situation, basin geography, right? We are in a valley, and the particulates that come from this, let me get this over here. The particulates from campfire could cause respiratory problems. Wow, I did not plan this out very well. Respiratory problems. So, especially if you have asthma or you're with somebody who's older or younger, they might struggle in this sort of a situation, right? Camping in this valley with all this wood smoke coming up from your campfire. Beautiful situation. But if you were lucky enough to have this information at your fingertips, you'd probably say, no, we shouldn't have a campfire. But if you did notice that the smoke was not dispersing upward as you normally would expect from a forest fire, and you could maybe see, in this valley, you might be able to see the contrast with the trees. You should probably put out that fire and save your breathing.